going on, everybody? It's Monday, July 22nd, 2024. It's time for One True Sport Daily. I'm Ryan Droste of Top Rope Nation, here as always with Zack Heydorn of Brass Ring Media. And Zack, I got to tell you, we've only been doing this show together a couple of weeks. What is it with these Monday shows? There's always, it seems like always big stuff has happened over the weekend when we do these Monday shows. You know, last week we're like, geez, anything noteworthy happen over the weekend? And this weekend, same thing. How you doing, man?
Doing good, doing really good. Yeah, another week. Glad to be here. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it is with the wrestling industry these last really like few years, but there's always something going on. There's always something going on. And I feel like during the week, we hit it relatively, in a time continuum that works. Here it's like we take 2 days off and it's like, damn, we got a lot to cover. A lot can happen in the pro wrestling industry in 3 days. So yeah, man, we're here and I'm pumped. Should be another big week.
And outside the pro wrestling industry as well. Assassination
That too. Yes, that also made
presidents stepping down. What a time to be alive. Is this a simulation, Zach? Is this real life? I don't know what's happening anymore.
Matrix is fully in. Yeah.
Guys, if you're not already subscribed here on One True Sport, make sure you do. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the like button. We would appreciate that a lot. It'll help Zach and I get out to more viewers, help the channel out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. If you want more content from One True Sport, go to onetruesport.com. If you go over there, you can find out how you become a member. You get all kinds of great benefits for becoming a member, exclusive access to some of the biggest legends in the history of pro wrestling. People like Jake the Snake Roberts, people like Rob Van Dam, Arn Anderson, Kurt Angle. The list goes on and on. Read about it, onetruesport.com. And as I said at the top, Zach and I do this show for him each and every day, Monday through Friday. If you want more from us, you can check out our work. Zach is the founder, creator of Brass Ring Media, along with Tyler Sage. They do a great job over there. Got a staff of people putting up content, so check them out on YouTube. They have a Substack as well that you can find their written work. And you can find me over at Top Rope Nation, where we produce a weekly pro wrestling podcast since 2016. Subscribe on YouTube and wherever podcasts are found. So, Zach, speaking of One True Sport, I want to throw this out at the very top of the show. I got to meet two of our founding members of One True Sport over the weekend face to face. So, Marcus and Paul were here in Waterloo for the Tragos Thez Hall of Fame, and I got to meet up with them a little bit over the weekend on Saturday. So that was really cool to meet those guys. They were very complimentary of what you and I have been doing on the show. And yeah, I mean, always a great time. You got to come over from Chicago sometime for the Tragos Thez. It's a lot of fun.
I have always wanted to go to that. You know that I've mentioned it to you before. I think the first year that I was for sure going to go was 2020.
Yes.
And then, we all know what happened that year. And then, then like they didn't have it for like, was it 2 years that they didn't have it or 3 or what?
I skipped 1 year. Yeah. The year you were going to come, they had a lot of stars lined up and then had to cancel it.
Yes. And then they canceled it. And then, just never got it back on the calendar. But I always, first of all, there's a lot of of our peers that are there. You've come over to my neck of the woods, but I've never been out that way. So yeah, it's definitely like high on my list of like pro wrestling things to do at some point. So yeah. You didn't check out the banquet? Did you end up going to the show or no? Because there's an indie show down there, right?
Yep. So I went to the indie show, and that's where I met up with Paul and Marcus. I did not go to the banquet this time. I'll probably go next year for sure. That's really cool. I mean, you literally dress up for it. They have in this banquet room, high-end production, legends everywhere that you can mingle with and stuff. Gone to that before. Didn't have a chance to go to that this year. That was Friday night. Did go to the indie show, which like Brock Anderson wrestled at that, which was kind of the big thing. Wes Briscoe, Gerald Briscoe's son, wrestled. They tagged together on the show, and so like Arn and Jerry came out with them. The indie show was like really long. It was almost like an AEW pay-per-view. It was like 3.5 hours long.
No.
That was my only complaint. They could have tightened that up a little bit. That's not the Tragos Thez people that do that, though. That's an indie promotion. I mean, it's like their biggest show of the year by far because they tie it in with the Hall of Fame weekend and everything. And I was planning on going out with Paul and Marcus to maybe even Arn, who knows, to have a drink or something after the show. And but man, by the time I went over after the show and talked to those guys, I'm like, I got to get my kids to bed because they were at the show with me. And like, I don't know if I can make it back down here. It's been a pretty long, and they were like, no, I think Marcus had to get up at 3 a.m. for his flight. He said, so they were like, nah, we're probably gonna head back to the hotel. So we didn't get to do that because the indie show went a little long. But again, super cool to meet up with those guys. And Zach, I asked about One True Sport Daily merch, and Paul said he's on it.
Yes, I love that. All right, see? All right, so even took care of a little business while you were out there with them. I love it. I love it. Good.
That's right.
Paul, we're holding you to that, man. We're holding you to that. No, I'm always like just the stories that you've told me about not just the weekend, but like being able to like go to a bar and like sit down and talk to Bret Hart or sit down and talk to you know, I think
Roddy Piper one year.
Roddy Piper was the other one. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like that is pretty sweet to like, you know, not in like a official like interview capacity like this, but like, hey, you're just sitting at a bar having a beverage or picking their brain. Like that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So that's the part that like I want to, you know, see in action and you know, see you guys and stuff like that. So yeah, maybe next year. Got to pencil that in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, would you have a chance to see SmackDown on Friday night? Let's talk a little SmackDown. Let's start there because as I mentioned, I didn't go to the banquet, so I did have a chance to see SmackDown, and I'll throw it to you. SmackDown was in Omaha. What were your thoughts on the show on Friday night?
I thought so. I saw it also, and I thought it was. I mean, I want to like be careful with how I kind of frame this up. I think, in general, like if you're looking at, all right, let me take a step back. If you're looking at it from the perspective of, okay, they've got a certain goal in mind, and they're using weekly television shows to meet that end goal. I think you can look at what they did on SmackDown and go, okay, like that works. You know, they're working very hard to get this new bloodline faction over, you know, and as this menacing, dangerous, loose cannon type group led by Solo Sikoa. And they're going to do Solo Sikoa versus Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam. So it's like when you think of it just in that framework, you're like, okay, well, you know, check boxes. Like they're beating up guys, they're taking out top heels, they're getting booed, they're getting heat. It's like, okay, that works. The thing is, though, it's like there is at this point like a monotony to it that I just don't think is interesting. You know, it's like we see the same thing over and over and over again, and I don't ever think it like progresses. It's just like Solo Sikoa is the same level heel he was 5 weeks ago, and he's beat up Cody Rhodes how many times now? Like 4 times, 2 weeks in a row, essentially like the same angle. So I just, while I understand what they're going for, and while I understand that like, hey, they're positioning Solo for Cody, they're positioning Solo and the Bloodline for a showdown with Roman Reigns, they're positioning Solo and trying to elevate that group so when The Rock comes back, he can get involved somehow. Like I get that has to be a priority, but when you put so much juice into like these angles and the main guy coming out like stays essentially flat to where he is, it just makes you wonder like whether or not this thing is going to work. And so you're investing a lot of television time for the same angle over and over again. The viewer is not seeing any comeuppance at this point from Cody. Yeah, he's probably going to win at SummerSlam, but you know, it kind of just makes for a flat show, in my opinion. And I kind of thought that's what it was, even though I do understand and they get a thumbs up for the attempt. It's still a wrestling show, and you still need it to be entertaining. So that's, hopefully I kind of explained like my nuanced thoughts on that. You get what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it was fine, but also like, all right, we've been there, done that, and Solo's gotten all this stuff, but he's kind of still the same like upper mid card guy and masquerading around as a SummerSlam main eventer. And you hope that you see an elevation when somebody gets a push like that, and I don't think we've seen that from him yet.
You were way more nuanced than I was going to be, Zach, because my one word for SmackDown on Friday was boring. I thought the show was I thought it was a bad show. I'm gonna be honest with you. When they announced this one, I thought about going to it. Omaha is like a 3-hour drive for me. It's not an
Okay.
easy drive. I mean, 3 hours is doable. And my two older daughters really like Cody Rhodes, and they haven't seen him. And I'm like, all right, maybe we go to Omaha.
Mhm.
Decided not to do it because of the Hall of Fame weekend and stuff. And I was really glad we didn't when I watched the show because I mean, yeah, Cody was on and everything, but like, man, overall the wrestling was pretty bland on this show. I mean, I thought like the Logan Paul LA Knight stuff was
That's fine.
decently entertaining. But I mean, yeah, like what you're saying with Solo, I think my problem with this, and we've talked a lot about Solo as a potential challenger and everything, is just that yeah, they do the Roman Reigns thing where like Reigns would just stand there and the rest of the bloodline would beat up whoever he was feuding with. And that's what they did here, where like Solo's hanging back, and Jacob Fatu is just wrecking these
Mhm.
guys. And it's like the difference is Roman had the cred. He was a guy who
Right.
was a multi-time world champion who we had seen wrestle the biggest stars in the industry for years. And Solo Sikoa's just hanging back, and he's a guy who's accomplished nothing.
Yeah.
So like, it just makes him look weak, in my opinion. I mean, I still don't buy him in this role. I know they're trying their hardest, but like, he does not feel like a top guy should be challenging for the world title. And so that was an issue for me. Did you notice when they did the backstage segment to something we've talked about here on the show, how they had Jacob right behind Solo and he was like holding up the beads and he was covering his face? Did you notice that?
I did well, I didn't notice that specifically. I mean, the covering up his face, but yeah, like, like, he was in the background. He's in the background. We talked about that, like, a couple times last week about how he's stealing the spotlight, and this was, like
Mhm.
it kinda felt like a actual response to, "Hey, you're overshadowing our prized possession here.
Yeah.
Take a step back," for better or worse, for better or worse. I still think he shows more charisma even in doing that because like you're watching I mean, like nobody really should notice the guy in the background holding up the beads and covering his face, but like Fatu just got some other level to his game right now, and it's even when they're like, "Tone it down, man." I'm still looking out for what he's doing on the screen more so
Yeah.
than Solo Sikoa. Yeah.
Yeah, it just felt I almost felt like they were intentionally trying to hide him, which is probably a good decision because I mean, like the way it was shot, he was literally covering his face,
Yep.
which he just like as we've said, he just jumps off the screen so
Mhm.
much more.
Yeah.
And then like, yeah, I mean, at the end of the show, again, he was kind of the story where Cody and Kevin Owens defeated A Town Down, but then of course Bloodline comes out and they try to fight him off, but in the end, it's a numbers game. And then yeah, Jacob Fatu just wrecked everybody, you know,
Yep.
and he looked awesome doing it,
Yeah.
So and then they all put up their ones and there's Solo in the middle and he puts on the beads and everything. They go off the air that way. So Andrew's in the chat, our guy Andrew. He's talking about long-term booking. He says it's because they're building to his failure because losing was such a big deal. Jimmy lost, Roman lost, Solo did not wrestle. They have plenty to chew on. Yeah. I mean, we'll
So let me
see.
jump in on that. I think that is what they're building to. And that's
Yeah.
what I mean. Like you can like go through this and like say like they're ticking all the right boxes for that story progression. The thing is though, you know, it's one thing to do that if he's wrestling guys, even guys just at like Kevin Owens' level. Like if they stayed there with this and did this with him and Randy and I don't know Gargano and like if they were at that level, like
Mhm.
I think I would have a different opinion on this because it would be like, okay, fine, they're developing this faction, they're telling that story, but they're doing it, you know, down a notch. Here, it's the main event of SummerSlam. Like you there's another level to that. And I think that even though that is what they're going for, the ultimate like failure of Solo Sikoa, Roman comes back, like that's where they're going. That is fine, except now you have it in a main event slot with Cody. And I think automatically, you look at it with different glasses because because of that. And I mean, I'm assuming that we see at SummerSlam at this point, not to preview the show here, but I'm assuming we see Cody beat Solo and then, Roman come out and have that, like, that confrontation. And the thing is, like, I guess, the argument for having Solo in the world title match is to try to get him like elevated as high as possible for that showdown with Roman. And I just they're putting him in the spot, but he's not like owning that spot. He's in it, but
Hmm.
he's not like, commanding that role at this point. And I don't think it's going to matter because I think Roman's going to be so over where it's like, you know, you know, everything's gonna fall into place once he gets involved, but you still have a SummerSlam main event to go.
Yeah.
And that's where I think this suffers a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's really no intrigue other than Roman coming back. He'll get a huge babyface pop. And again, Cody's secondary in this whole thing, which unfortunately
Yeah.
has kind of been the story of his entire title run, as we got into, I think, on the show on Fridays. Just
Mhm.
he hasn't had a good feud. And here he's playing secondary the bloodline again. So
Yep.
elsewhere on SmackDown, real quick, and then we'll jump to some other topics. Tiffany Stratton wrestled Michin Mia Yim, and Michin actually got the win. There was some distraction from Bailey, and like Stratton was distracted by her, and then Michin rolled her up from behind. That was the finish there. So playing up that feud a little bit. As I mentioned, the LA Knight, Logan Paul contract signing in the middle of the ring. They did that. They had some pretty good heat between each other back and forth. It was pretty viable. Did you like that segment?
I did like that segment. Yeah, I thought that was the best thing on the show this week. Not necessarily a high bar to clear, but I think
Yeah.
it was the best thing on the show. This is like a ready-made SummerSlam feud. Like, this makes total sense to me to do this. I think, both guys can talk, and they got him in a position where they could do that, and they went back and forth, one-liners, zingers. Like, that's what you want to see out of those two guys. And especially because I just don't think the match is going to be like tremendous, just because LA Knight has a ceiling on it, his in-ring acumen. Um, Logan Paul, can, like, even as with as little experience as he has, can probably wrestle circles around LA Knight, but it doesn't matter in the end. Like, this is a character-based feud. LA Knight's major over. The point of Logan Paul holding the title to me was so that somebody on the level of LA Knight can face him in a big, WrestleMania main event or SummerSlam, not main event, WrestleMania show or SummerSlam show, to have like a really strong mid card title feud, title change. I think that's what we're seeing here, and this week was a really good chapter of that. So yeah, thumbs up on this.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. They had a very brief match with Bianca Belair defeating Chelsea Green. I'm running this whole story where Chelsea loses and then complains about everything afterwards on social media. And then after the match, of course, Jade's out there with Bianca, and Alba Fire and Isla Dawn were on the Tron, and they were, taunting them, basically saying this is as close as you're going to get to the tag team titles again. They had a backstage pre-tape with Bailey and Nia Jax, where Bailey kind of leaned into Nia's real history of injuring her and her being unsafe in the ring and clumsy and all of that. So, I mean, if you're a smart fan and you know about Nia's history, you probably dug that a little bit. Nia's not always the most popular person online. So um, Bailey kind of leaned into that a little bit. Carmelo Hayes and Andrade. Andrade won this match. What do you think of this one? I just don't see Andrade just doesn't get any heat from the crowd. Every time he's out there, it's just underwhelming to me. He's a good
Yeah,
wrestler, but just doesn't get much reaction.
he does not. And I wonder, like, what's going on with Carmelo Hayes. Like,
Yeah.
that stood out, more than just it was just it's bizarre to see him take a loss like that one to Andrade. Like, what? Like, what's going on here? Like, what's the end game with Andrade? I mean, Andrade's the speed champion. Like, what are we doing? I mean, Carmelo Hayes is a guy to me that you want to try to build around. And the thing with him too, that where you get into dangerous territory, is that he's his whole gimmick presence everything is like contingent on being very good at wrestling and winning and being, him, right?
Mhm.
His size, he has to have the wins that back up what he says because his size is he's small. And so like if you start giving him losses to guys like Andrade, like you get to a point where eventually it could be hard to bring him back because people just won't see him as anything other than, oh, he's the guy that loses to Andrade. It's kind of like Johnny Gargano in that way, where it's like you gotta, Gargano has to win some big ones if you're gonna like
Mhm.
get anything significant out of him. And for Carmelo Hayes, the push that he got in NXT and like, seemingly the company was behind him as a future star. Like, man, it's not over for him, but like losing to Andrade, that's like to me, that's when you go into Paul Levesque's office and go, hey, okay, what do I got to do here? Because that is not where I want to be.
It's bad. It's not
Yes.
good news. Yeah. So, I mean, that was pretty much SmackDown. There was that opening segment with Cody that set up the main event that we talked about. Not a lot really to talk about there, I don't think.
No,
So,
no.
we had Slammiversary, and I guess the big news coming out of Slammiversary is that Nick Nemeth, the former Dolph Ziggler, is now the TNA World Champion. He won the 6-way elimination match in the main event. Zach, thoughts on Nick Nemeth as your world champion?
Man, TNA is going to TNA. That's my thought on this. Like, like it's like how many times can you make the same error over and over again? Like, look, this is nothing against Nick Nemeth or Dolph Ziggler. Like, he's a good wrestler, like for sure, and he's a good talent for TNA to have on their roster. But that you have to differentiate yourself from other companies, and this is like a retread from, I mean, how long ago? 10 years ago he was a world champion, and it's just like we've been there and done that with the Nick Nemeth thing. We've been there
Yeah.
and done that with him, and it's just more the same. What are you going to get from Nick Nemeth that you already aren't getting? Like, if people are tuning in to see Nick Nemeth wrestle in TNA, they're already there. They're already seeing him. I was shocked that they didn't go with Joe Hendry here. Like, that is a talent that is getting more buzz than TNA than really has any right to get right now. And
Yeah.
I'm not even like a Joe Hendry guy. Like, I watch him wrestle and I'm like, okay, like it is, whatever.
Mhm.
It is what it is. But you look at the his entrance. Joel Pearl from Fightful was at the show, and on his Twitter, he put up like a clip of the Joe Hendry entrance, and it was like legit excitement, a legit babyface pop. And instead of putting the world title on him and running as far as you can before he signs an NXT contract, he's now going to have like a mid card feud with Josh Alexander, who turned heel on him, and it's just like, all right, Nick Nemeth, go do your thing, man. Like, here's 100,000 viewers again. I just think it was a mistake, and just really like a bad allocation of resources in the
Mhm.
company that has some buzz right now. And TNA buzz doesn't last long, and you got to take advantage of it while you can. And I really very much don't think they did here.
No, I agree. I mean, this reeks of, oh, former WWE guy,
Yeah.
he'll put some eyeballs on us. But like, is Nick Nemeth really a draw in 2024? Joe Hendry's a bigger draw for you. He's the one getting buzz on WWE television right now.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense. I agree. I haven't seen the show yet. And Zach, you said you're going to be watching it here soon too.
Mhm.
It just does not make any sense. I don't get that decision at all. I mean, the match I'm most looking forward to seeing is that X Division title match, which from all accounts, from what I've seen from my friends, no surprise, was the match of the night with
Yeah.
Speedball Mike Bailey defeating Mustafa Ali. Uh, Again, I haven't seen it yet. They won about 20 minutes. Bailey wins the X Division title. I mean, going in, you would pick that as match of the night, though.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely the match of the night. And really, kind of like as we kind of talked about, like build of the show too. Like they put like some good effort into like building that match up, and
Mhm.
didn't go the way I predicted it necessarily, but I'm excited to watch that one for sure.
Yeah. All right. So Monday Night Raw tonight, Green Bay, Wisconsin. Zach, anything you'd like to say about Green Bay, Wisconsin?
Oh man, I didn't realize. I feel like I need to like boycott the show tonight or something to to not watch it. Boy, what can I say about Green Bay? You know what? Like, I don't know that I have it. I don't know I have it in me to talk trash about Green Bay. Every time I do, it bites me in the butt. I think I'm just gonna let it
Well,
ride. Let it ride out until what is it? Week 8 we get them or something like
well,
that.
here's what I'll say as a Bears fan. I got the Bears going 10-7 this year, and that includes 2 losses to Green Bay. I refuse to pick them
There
to
you
beat
go.
Green Bay until they actually do beat Green Bay again,
Yes.
consistently, which has been a
That is
while.
the right way to go. Yes, yes.
But I will say
10 and
this
7,
about Green
that's
Bay.
fair. That's a fair. I'm at 9 and 8 just because I'm too scared to pick 10 and 7. It's just fear. It's just fear of being disappointed later. That's it.
Andrew, that's not too optimistic. They won 7 games last year. And they've improved their roster significantly. And they had 3 games last year that they blew in the fourth quarter with a
Yeah.
way worse roster.
Yep.
If you look at their schedule, it's really tough down the stretch. I have them losing most of the games on the back half, but in like the early to middle part of the schedule, they play a bunch of teams that are really bad. I mean, like the worst teams, like Carolina, Washington, New England. They should win all those games. And then I have them splitting with the NFC North, except getting swept by Green Bay, of course.
You got to
But
pick that. You got to. I
yeah,
mean, there's no reason. Yeah, I'm with you. I'll believe it when I see it, and I'll be really happy if it happens and they get a W. I'll be happy, but like, just conditioned for too long to
yeah.
to eat losses from them.
Look
So
at these haters in the chat. Okay, Caleb Williams might bust, but there's no reason to think he will bust. There's no actual facts that you can point to say that he will. By all accounts, he should succeed given he has the best wide receiver room in the NFL, arguably, right now.
yeah,
The
come
O-line
on,
is way
guys.
better than people think. I think they got to figure out center. But outside of that, they actually, if you look at the ratings for last year, they have a middle to upper half of the league offensive line, believe it or not. I'm most worried about the D line.
Yeah,
They got Montez Sweat, but they need some of their tackles to step up their game big time.
they
So
do. They really do. And come on, chat. Like, just let us
listen,
have
none of
this
this
one.
is
All right,
accurate. You're just reading ESPN headlines. Watch
just
the
let us.
games.
And even so, like, just let us have it. The season hasn't even started yet. Like,
Come on.
now's the time to be outrageously optimistic,
That's
and
right.
that's what I'm going to be. That's what I'm going to be. So, chat, shame on you.
Shame.
But
Shame.
come back tomorrow, though.
All right. So the thing I will say about Green Bay is they usually have bad wrestling crowds, like notoriously really bad wrestling crowds. They're just never really into the shows. They're very quiet. So if they get ramped up tonight, I'll give them props tomorrow on the show.
All right.
Now, heading into the show, though, they don't have a lot to get excited about, Zach. There's not much. I mean, they're going to get CM Punk. Okay. They'll pop for CM Punk. He's returning to the show. Not a very far drive from Chicago.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I mean, they don't have much announced for the show. They have Xavier Woods, Otis, and Tozawa against the Final Testament announced. They have Lyra Valkyria against Sonya Deville announced, and CM Punk appearing, and that's it. That's all that is announced for Raw tonight.
Yeah, they're really leaning heavy on Punk to do some business here. Obviously, I think we're gonna get like Damian Priest Judgment Day stuff. I'm sure we'll get Liv Rhea stuff. I'm sure that'll all be there. But like the hook to watch is Punk. I mean, and with the some pictures and news that came out like mid to end of last week, he was at the Performance Center, presumably training and or working to get cleared. So this may be like the igniting of the torch for Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk. Like, he's on the show. It's to me, it's like, if he's not cleared, you don't put him on the show unless he's got.
Right.
Because what's he gonna say at this point? So I think I would, if I was a betting person when it came to wrestling, I would bet that like I think he's gonna like say that he's cleared and he's ready to go and get that match on the way. I don't know what it means for Seth Rollins, so I'm sure he'll be involved. But this to me tells me that like we're gonna get some significant storyline progression here because there's not that much time. There's what 2 weeks left before SummerSlam,
Yeah.
right? Two
Yeah.
more Raws. So, they got to get going with it or get to something else. And so my guess is we see him kind of declare he's ready, he's back, and he's going to wrestle, Drew McIntyre at SummerSlam. So my guess is tomorrow at this time, that's what we'll be talking about on the show.
Yeah. Yeah, Chuck in the chat saying probably going to build up the IC title match. Absolutely. I'm sure Breaker's going to be on a rampage again tonight, and we'll lean into that for sure. So yeah, that's Raw. There's not a lot to talk about, you guys, but tomorrow we will have plenty to talk about because we'll have the 3 hours of Raw tonight to sift through.
Yes.
And hopefully you guys will all join us tomorrow. Zach, what do you have going on at Brass Ring Media today?
Yeah, we got some good stuff dropping later this afternoon. So we have a live show on YouTube. Our Monday Mania show will be kind of covering the events of the weekend in long form. Tyler's got that locked down. That's 3 Eastern today. So you can head over, subscribe on Brass Ring Media so you don't miss that. But that's always a fun show. Usually it's about 45 minutes of just diving into the topics of the weekend. Also, we'll have on Substack our reviews of night 1 and night 2 of the G1. So that will drop as well. We had they started the G1 on Saturday with 2 like behemoth shows, like everybody in action across both blocks. So 10 matches on each show. So it is a lot, but we got you covered, and it was actually like a pretty exciting like 2 nights of G1 action. So that'll drop later this afternoon on the Brass Ring Media Substack as well. So you can go over and subscribe for free there and get that in our coverage all throughout the tournament. If you missed all that, just follow me on social media, and I usually am good about plugging stuff there. So at Zack_Heydorn.
Awesome. Yeah, give them a follow. Give Zach a follow. Give Brass Ring Media a follow for sure. They got awesome stuff going up all the time. The latest edition of Top Rope Nation, you guys can check out here on YouTube if you search for the podcast, or you can find it linked on my social media as well, which is at Ryan Droste. We discussed the match last week between Will Ospreay and MJF, kind of where that ranked historically as far as AEW TV matches go. Had a good discussion on that I think you'll enjoy. And then we also kind of dove into WWE and the title picture going into SummerSlam as well. So you can find that on YouTube here and wherever podcasts are found. So with that said, this has been One True Sport Daily. Zach, always a lot of fun, my friend.
Always a blast. We'll be back tomorrow. Looking forward to it, guys. Thank you.
See you guys tomorrow morning, 11 Eastern, 10 a.m. Central. I'll see you then. Have a good Monday.